Hey guys, what's happening? So we are back for the conclusion of the 8 deaths of Spider-Man, which continues from the return of Spider-Man and his transformation into the Juggernaut, but also with how this plays out. Peter learns what it truly means to become unstoppable, and more. So with that said, if you're enjoying the video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so this one picks up right where we left off, when we saw Peter get transformed into the unstoppable Juggernaut, so he could take on Calyx, the son of Cyttorak, who had recently become the avatar of the Blight, which is like this crazy powerful entity that Calyx was exposed to when he traveled beyond the barriers of the casket and got infected with soul rot. And all the Blight wants is to corrupt and consume everything in its path. And with Calyx bringing its corruption to Earth, it's only a matter of time before the world's done for. And I also got to point out here, in just the last video, with everything that Peter went through, because in the scope of minutes, we went from the return of Spider-Man to the final death of Spider-Man, to where after that, thanks to Syra, Cyttorak's daughter, who gave up her immortality to bring Peter back to send him off towards Calyx as a Juggernaut. And it's like in this short amount of time, Peter has experienced more than most heroes will ever experience. But yeah, with just one hit, Peter returns with Calyx to Earth from the Crimson Cosmos. And it's like Strange and Emperor Doom, they see this too. But what's crazy about this moment with Peter coming back, it's like with this one hit, the first hit that he gave Calyx, when they returned, this restored the X-Men, who were just recently corrupted with soul rot. And the explanation we get, it comes from the Juggernaut, who tells Peter that he just knocked the rot right out of them with that entrance. So now it's like Kane doesn't have to fight his friends anymore. And when the X-Men snap out of it, for a moment Magic's like, "Kane, I hurt you." So he just tells her, "Oh, barely a scratch, don't feel bad." And she's just like, "I don't, just want it noted that I got in a good shot. Corrupted or not, it counts." And the funny thing to me is like Magic, she does care, though she has a funny way of expressing it, which is something I always liked about her, because if you grow up around demons, you're gonna be a little socially awkward. But at the same time, with her saying that she just wanted it to be known that she got a good shot in, this has me thinking of what we talked about not too long ago, earlier in this series, when we looked back at how in Uncanny X-Men, Darkchild had basically ended this man's whole career by reaching into the Juggernaut, taking the Crimson Gem, and destroying it, which absolutely stopped the Juggernaut for a good while. But it's like now, after the unique process that Kane went through to become the Juggernaut again, where he inhaled the dust from the Crimson Gem, and he took on a suit that magically brought forth the Crimson Bands in this dimension, and now it's like it's hard to say what effect either Magic or Darkchild would have on this version of the Juggernaut now, because he still draws power from Cyttorak, though now it's in a very different way, because it's in his suit and his blood, or whatever happens when someone snorts Crimson Gem dust. So yeah, his powers are set up quite differently now, let's just put it that way. So I can even imagine Magic being genuinely curious about what effect the Soul Sword might have had on him. And as of right now, Kane said that he's fine, like nothing happened. But it might be worth keeping an eye on this guy, because the Soul Sword can nullify magic, so this could mean something down the line. But getting back to the immediate threat here, which is rot-corrupted Calyx and his Rottweilers, it's here where Kane asks Peter like, "Hey man, you ever hear of a fastball special?" And I'm telling you man, these fastball specials, it feels like we get them once a week at this point. But Kane asked Peter here if he's ever heard of it, and I think it's funny that he even asked, because like 30 issues ago during Gang War, Spider-Man and She-Hulk pulled off a fastball special. And so for anyone who may be stumbling across this video or you've never heard of a fastball special, historically this move belongs to Wolverine and Colossus. So that's why the Juggernaut says that it's an X-Men thing before hurling the Spider-Naut at Calyx, which proves to be really effective as far as knocking the dude off his feet. And Peter even admits around this time that this power, it feels intoxicating, and that he now understands how the Juggernaut feels on a cellular level. But this method of just beating up Calyx is not going to stop the greater issue, because even now as Calyx gets back up, he's getting ready to draw more rot from the Blight, which is basically just going to get them back where they were just moments ago. So this is where the Juggernaut and the X-Men, they go on to put their focus on Calyx and his Rottweilers, while Peter makes his way to the Blight. And when he does, there's a moment here where Peter starts to realize what he needs to do. Because as Kane heads towards Calyx, he tells Peter, "Don't think, just do. It's always worked for me, more or less." And that's where Peter starts to do the Spider-Naut version of the Superman takeoff. As he thinks to himself, the Juggernaut footfalls are all I hear for a second. Matching my heartbeat, the world slows. And I realize the big lug is right. I've done enough thinking. I know what the solution is. Nothing else matters. And when he shoots up towards the blight, he strikes it, but that's not so much the plan. And really we get this moment where both Doctor Strange and Emperor Doom are watching, where Strange figures out what the Spider-Naut's getting ready to do. Because at this point, with Cyttorak not really doing anything himself, Doctor Strange is like, there's only one way to recast the casket. And he looks at Doom like, oh my god, this is why you chose Spider-Man. Did you plan for this? And we'll see what this is in a moment. But first we head back to the Crimson Cosmos, where Syra's having a conversation with her father, Cyttorak, where she tells him it's quiet. If it were not so terrible, it would be nice. But we can scare the quiet away with truth, father. I have traded immortality, my share of your crimson magics, to spare the life of the mortal champion so that he can save the Earth realm, including you. And this just has Cyttorak like, why? Why am I immobilized, indecisive, confused? So Syra tells him, I've been asking myself that very question since I met this curious human. The unthinkable has happened. You have lost 6 of your children. Their immortality, their essence stripped away by blight in the form of calyx. Humans call it grief. And hearing that just causes Cyttorak to go off, because he just yells to her, nothing can hurt Cyttorak. And this just leads to Syra educating him on how feelings work, because she tells him no, the great Cyttorak did nothing, as his son killed his siblings and attacked his father. You are broken. So he tells her to make it stop, only for Syra to let him know, I cannot. This pain is inevitable, but maybe there's one who can help if it's not too late. Which from here takes us back to Peter and his plan. Because for a moment here, Peter's just like, man, the blight is horrifying. It's a force of nature. It exists to cull souls from existence. And at first he starts to ask himself why, but then shortly after he's like, well, what's the point in asking? But he goes on to say here, Doctor Strange figured out a way to hide our entire dimension from this thing, but it took the power of a god. I'm a kid from Queens who got a crash course in magic last week, but with the slice of power I got from a god's daughter, I think I can make it work. I can cast the casket of Cyttorak continuously. So basically Spider-Man is sacrificing the rest of his days to protect Earthrealm. And this is where Cyttorak shows up telling Peter failure is inevitable. Maybe not today. With the power of my blood coursing through you, you can live 100 years. But the blight is part of the primal fabric of the universe. It will prevail eventually. And that's where Peter tells him, I know, Mr. Cyttorak. Mr. Cyttorak. Mr. Cyttorak, sir. But Peter basically tells him that he's going to cast a spell anyway. And this just has Cyttorak like, why? The blight will prevail. Why do you fight? Why when life is so fragile? And really this all just goes back to what we talked about before, as far as Cyttorak and his science being immortal and so far removed from humanity or the cares of like your everyday person. Because over the course of history, more humans have died than the amount of people who exist on the planet today. And I mean a lot more, like 10 times over. So yeah, if you take like the world population right now, multiply it by 10, then you got a rough number for the amount of people who have died throughout history. So for someone like Cyttorak, who's seen the other 93 or 94% of people come and go like a vapor that's here and gone with so many people over the course of centuries, this has Cyttorak looking at Spider-Man like, why? Why would you give everything for that small number when eventually the blight will prevail? So Peter tells him here, despite the magical craziness of the last few days, this is the only life I have. Most of the time, it's hard. It's not fair. Sometimes it flat out sucks, but it's my life. There's not another one like it anywhere. It's beautiful exactly because it's so fragile. Every life is like that. Even if in 1,000 years, my life and anything I ever did won't matter. It matters today. Today is worth fighting for. And I gotta tell you, anytime you see Spider-Man hit this T-pose right here, you already know that he's getting ready to display a great level of responsibility. And Miles does it too from time to time. But in this moment right here, where Peter's basically ready to just give up the rest of his life, to hold it down for the next 100 years or however long, this moment in itself is peak Spider-Man. Because this is what Doctor Strange was talking about when he looked at Doom and he was like, oh, this is why you chose him. Because Doom just basically pulled a, yeah, you better than me, big dog. Because Peter's proven himself to be the type of hero who would make this decision time and time again. So Peter even tells Cyttorak here, with a view to the horizon of infinity, I don't expect you to understand, and I don't care. I'm alive, I'm fighting, just like everyone. And right here, Cyttorak just smacks Peter out the way, mid-sentence, and he takes Spider-Man's place. Because how could you not be inspired by Spider-Man after all this? Because it's like Cyttorak had to experience loss to even come to the point where he would do this. And I just imagine this is the part of the movie where the music starts playing as Cyttorak realizes what needs to be done. as he becomes the Crimson Casket and creates a new covenant. And we're given a bit more context here as we're told a reading from the book of Ashanti that goes on to say, Earth's champion recalls that day and the words of the immovable god Cyttorak. I hurt, he said, and I see no end to that pain. But if you can act in the face of your loss, of your insignificance and fragility, so can Cyttorak. I will become the Crimson Casket that shields this world, this dimension from the horror of blight. I will protect my remaining children, flawed as they are, and this world. This is the new covenant, not forged on a whim, not even forged by my own will. I make this pledge because I grieve, and I fear that without action, grief is all that will remain. On this day, Doom, Sorcerer Supreme, taught a god what it means to live, and forged the barrier that would forever shield our universe from the blight. So following this, Peter makes his way back to Earth and he finds out that Calyx has been taken care of, which basically leads to him being locked away. So maybe now, since Cyttorak is tied up indefinitely, this could lead to Syra having a more substantial role. We'll just have to wait and see down the line. But again, with Peter coming back to Earth, at this point he's like, man, I never want to do magic ever again, not even at a kid's party. And it's like, you know, seeing Spider-Man laid out like this is how most Spider-Men look after trying to do a backflip at a kid's party. And following this, we even see Peter go back to the people in his life to either make more time for them or set things right. He goes back to being a mentor for Bailey Briggs, Spider-Boy, who Peter even brings with him to Kenny's funeral, who's the guy we saw Peter saving back in issue 61, just before Doom showed up, where unfortunately Kenny passed just a few issues later. So now it's like, with Peter bringing Bailey to the funeral after telling Bailey that nothing matters before, and it's almost like Peter's taking this opportunity to give Bailey a child-sized portion of the lesson that he just learned, which I imagine Bailey won't fully understand for quite some time, but it's going to be a huge thing for the kid to know at some point down the line. And just going back to one of the major lessons that Peter had learned from this experience, at one point he said, I've never felt unstoppable. It's intoxicating. It's also a lie. Lots of things can stop the Spider-Knot. The pain of loss, the feeling that life is meaningless, good old-fashioned fear. I know because they stopped me. I gave up. I'm never doing that again. So yeah, and after everything that's happened, it's like Peter's learned what it truly means to be unstoppable. And after this, later on, Peter makes his way to go see Aunt May to make things right, because Peter did kind of snap on her a little while back, and May forgives him before he can even finish what he's saying. And later on, when he goes to see Felicia, he tells her an apology isn't exactly right, neither is a thank you, but he just didn't want things to be awkward. So she basically tells him just promise to keep Emo Peter at bay. No one likes Emo Peter. And don't get me started on dancing Emo Peter, which right there had me thinking like, wait, is she talking about? Nah, it couldn't be. And after this, the last place we head to is Peter's art gallery that Randy set up for him, but really only his friends and family had shown up for it to support him. And to Peter's surprise, Shay comes through. And really, throughout this event, Shay was the one person who Peter really feels like gave him some helpful advice when she told him that pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. But after that, she basically walked away and told Peter to seek help. So I think the reason why Peter didn't reach out to her like everyone else was mainly because that would have made things very weird. But with her coming to his gallery, this gives Peter the opportunity to ask her if they can try to start over again. So yeah, with this event and really this series ending at Peter's photo gallery with all the people closest to him, it's a nice way to wrap things up before we get to Joe Kelly's brand new Amazing Spider-Man series. So here's to hoping that Peter has a happier and brighter future ahead, because my guy needs a break. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.